The Nintendo Switch is home to thousands of different games with a bunch of different varieties when it comes to the genres of them. First-person shooters, 2D platformers, 3D platformers. There's pretty much something for everyone on the Nintendo Switch, and that includes a genre of games I really enjoy, retro game compilations. The Nintendo Switch is full of these, and I own most of them. So in today's video, I want to talk about the best retro game compilations on the Nintendo Switch, the must-own ones in my opinion. So sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's talk about the must-own retro game compilations for your Nintendo Switch.
So you can't talk about retro game compilations on the Nintendo Switch without, of course, mentioning the NES and SNES in the online service for the Nintendo Switch. Now you get a bunch of different NES and SNES games on here. Many classics are available on the system, but you don't actually own them. You're essentially just renting them through Nintendo Switch's online service. I think there is a great variety of games. I do wish that they would add more games regularly to the service, but I'm pretty sure you're well aware of the fact that you can get NES and SNES games on your Nintendo Switch via the Nintendo Switch's online service. But if for some reason you were left in the dark about this, this is one of the compilations that I definitely recommend on the system. Next up, we have various Namco collections, or Namco collections if you pick up the physical edition. Now this compilation was released on the Nintendo Switch in two different parts with various 8-bit Namco and Namco games, depending on if you get the Japanese version of the game. Now in Japan, they actually released a physical edition of this compilation, which includes the first part of the collection, which is what I own. The standout title in this has to be Pac-Man Championship Edition. This is essentially a demastered version of Pac-Man Championship Edition with the NES in mind, and honestly, it is absolutely spectacular and very, very addicting to play. Other highlights on this compilation include Splatterhouse Wanpaku Graffiti, which of course was a chibi-style Splatterhouse game released on the Famicom and never officially released for the NES. This is a really great compilation of Namco games. I definitely recommend the first part of the compilation just to get Pac-Man Championship Edition, but both compilations are definitely worth checking out.
Now before we get into the next compilation of games, I want to give a huge thank you to the sponsor of this video, Skillshare. Now what is Skillshare? Well, I'm glad you asked. Skillshare is a really cool online community filled with millions of people for people who either want to learn a new skill or improve upon something they are passionate about but might not be the best at. There's a wide range of topics from art, music, video editing, which, let's be real, I could probably use some help on. Oh, we're still filming? To even business stuff, which is great. I've actually been taking the course Video Editing Masterclass with Cyberlink Power Director 15/16 with Masik Batista, and it's actually pretty dope because that's the software I use to edit my videos. And right now, if you click the link in the description box down below, and you are one of the first 1,000 people, you can get 2 months free of Skillshare Premium to check it out and learn something cool. And after that, it's just about $10 a month. So you want to improve some skills and potentially improve your life? Check out Skillshare with the link in the description box down below.
Next up, we have the Atari Flashbacks collection. Now this is a little bit more of quantity over quality because there's 150 games on this compilation and some of them are just, well, pretty much unplayable for modern standards. Now I don't really have any nostalgia for these titles, and like I said, some of them are downright bad, but there are definitely some good games to check out in this collection, especially if you're a fan of this primitive time in video gaming history. This compilation features online and local play if you want to play with some of your friends, online leaderboards for some of the more popular games, and even features arcade versions of some of the more popular and better games on this compilation, such as Tempest and Asteroids. It's pretty cheap to pick up, and considering the fact that you're getting 150 games, you'll probably find something you'll like if you enjoy more retro style games from a very primitive era in gaming. Next up, we have the SNK 40th Anniversary Collection. Now this is a collection of early SNK titles, essentially from the pre-fighting game era of the company. This compilation features 24 different games with a strong emphasis on the arcade versions of these titles, but it does feature some console versions of the games as well. Most of these games were once again a bit before my time, but there are definitely some gems on this compilation, such as Crystallis, the arcade versions of the Ikari Warriors franchise, which are, well, vastly superior to the NES one, and bizarre games like Athena, which I have really grown to love over time. This package also includes some cool art and history of SNK during this time frame as well, and is a very solid compilation if these sort of games interest you.
Next up, it's time for some Capcom lovin'. Capcom.
There's a ton of awesome Mega Man collections available on the Nintendo Switch. Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 features the 6 games released on the NES, along with tons of historical data about the games, and even includes the ability to reduce the slowdown in the original games, making for a much smoother experience. Mega Man Legacy Collection 2 features Mega Man 7, 8, 9, and 10, all of the cool history stuff with it, and even includes the DLC that was released for Mega Man 9 and 10, along with various challenges and even a time trial mode. The Mega Man X Legacy Collection is available in 2 parts as well, with the first compilation featuring Mega Man X, Mega Man X2, Mega Man X3, and Mega Man X4, along with the usual history stuff and new modes such as the X Challenge mode. Mega Man X Legacy Collection 2 features Mega Man X5, Mega Man X6, Mega Man X7, and Mega Man X8. And I honestly think that Mega Man X8 is more of a hidden gem in the series, and the first time I actually played this was on this compilation, and I definitely really enjoyed it. And just like all the other Mega Man collections, you get all the great history stuff as well. Then there's Mega Man 0/ZX Legacy Collection, which brings together 6 classic titles into one game. Mega Man 01, Mega Man 02, Mega Man 03, Mega Man 04, Mega Man ZX, and Mega Man ZX Advent. And this also features new game modes such as the Z Chaser mode, an easy mode, and of course all the cool history stuff as well. If you are a Mega Man fan, no matter from what era, you are definitely very well covered on the Nintendo Switch when it comes to compilations. The Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection is for sure one of my favorites on the Nintendo Switch because, well, I love Street Fighter. Featuring the greatest games from the history of Street Fighter, you get 12 different versions of classic games in this franchise, featuring everything from the, well, horrible first title in the series known as Street Fighter, Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 3, and the Street Fighter Alpha series. There's online play for select titles to battle other world warriors, tons of amazing artwork and history to see, and as a Street Fighter fan, this is by far the most complete collection of Street Fighter games ever released, and it's absolutely fantastic on the Nintendo Switch. And finally, from Capcom, we have the Capcom Beat Em Up bundle, which features various Capcom arcade beat 'em ups. No, not wood, the actual game genre. You get Final Fight, Captain Commando, The King of Dragons, Knights of the Round, and Warriors of Fate, as well as 2 games that were unavailable on consoles previous to this compilation, Armored Warriors and Battle Circuit. You can play the Japanese versions of these arcade classics, there's online features, and of course, in true Capcom fashion, tons of cool history stuff. All in all, Capcom has been one of the better companies doing a great job to keep retro classics alive on the Nintendo Switch, and I think this is something that they should definitely pursue in the future because, well, they have so many awesome games. Now, while not as good as Capcom, Konami has actually released 3 different retro game compilations, but we're only going to talk about the 2 that I own, the Castlevania and the Contra Collection. The Castlevania Collection is honestly, well, just fantastic. You get a range of 8-bit and 16-bit Castlevania games from the Game Boy, NES, Super NES, and Genesis, with highlights including games like Castlevania 3 and of course Castlevania Bloodlines. You also get Kid Dracula for the Famicom, which never got an official release in the States before this compilation. Beyond that, there's a very long detailed history section that goes in depth about the Castlevania franchise and even regional variants of the games from Japan and Europe. This is a pretty big deal, especially with games like Castlevania 3, as the Famicom version of this game actually included an extra sound chip that sounds fantastic and completely changes the depth of an already fantastic musical score that is available in Castlevania 3. The Contra Collection is pretty similar to the Castlevania one. You get a wide range of Contra titles from the 8-bit and 16-bit era, but you also get some arcade versions of Contra as well if you want to see the roots of this game, as many of us played the original NES title with really no knowledge of the arcade version. Alongside of that, this compilation features the European versions of some Contra games as well, which was known as Probotector and featured robots instead of humans because, well, I guess Europe couldn't handle people dying. And as with Castlevania, there's a great history selection as well that features tons of details about the Contra series. There is also a Konami Arcade compilation featuring some early Konami Arcade titles, but I never picked it up. Should I? Let me know in the comments down below. Before we talk about the final and arguably my favorite compilation on the system, I do want to briefly mention 2 retro compilations that aren't quite retro, the Crash Insane trilogy and the Spyro Reignited trilogy. Now, although these are based on the retro games and essentially play the same, I feel the newly done visuals and more modernized controls and features don't quite make the classic retro compilations list. But these are still great titles that are definitely worth mentioning if you are a fan of 3D platformers, because they feel very modern on the Nintendo Switch. The final game compilation we're going to talk about is by far my favorite on the system, and that is the Sega Genesis Classics Collection. Now, if you grew up with a Sega Genesis like I did, this is absolute heaven for you, with 50 various titles ranging from games like RPGs, platformers, and of course, lots of Sonic the Hedgehog. There's tons of additional features in this game as well, different scan lines you can do as seen in most of these games, and honestly, I just love the Sega Genesis Classics Collection because I love the Sega Genesis library. I feel they did a fantastic job of representing the Sega Genesis on the Nintendo Switch, and like I said, this is by far my favorite compilation on the Nintendo Switch because there's so many great games, and the Sega Genesis was just such an awesome system. Definitely the must own if you only pick up one game out of any of these compilations. The Sega Genesis Classics Collection is going to give you hundreds of hours of gameplay, and you won't regret a single thing about it.
Alright, so those are some of the retro game compilations on the Nintendo Switch that I definitely recommend. Like I said, I haven't played all of the retro game compilations on the system. There's a bunch of different others, so be sure to let me know in the comments section down below if you feel like I'm missing out on any that I definitely need to check out. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. Be sure to give me your thoughts about everything in the comments section down below if you plan on picking up any of these games. Once again, I want to give a big thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.